That be consensus here to have building and planning to do that function?
Well, I don't know that you need to make that decision right now. I think it would depend on the methodology as to who would be best to do it.
Okay.
So that would go along with the methodology. So that's the first one here is how you count things. Then related to that would be giving direction to formally update the data tables using data generated by whatever methodology you specify. It would also be clarifying the formulas for adding visitor service units, and those were the 4 different options that Jessica went over. And then giving direction to calculate the current numbers of allowable units based on the clarified formulas and the new data. So these are kind of sequential in some cases. Clarifying that vacation home rental, single unit rental cap. The idea of moving the data tables from the body of the Mendocino Town Plan to an attachment. All that would do is make the Mendocino Town Plan a little bit more readable, and it would clarify that the tables do get regularly updated, even though the town plan itself, narrative, would not necessarily be changed. The clarifying the 1999 recommendations, this is kind of harking back to some of the recommendations and concerns in the grand jury report, and making sure that it's clear that it's only board adopted policies that get implemented. So if you want some additional policies, then they need to be formally adopted by the board. And those particular recommendations were just that, and they were not formally adopted by the board at the time. You need to decide whether or not to revise the entire Mendocino Town Plan, and then there would be a work plan and a community process if we were to do that. So those are kind of the sequential steps that you'd look at that are plan related. Other activities then would be planning and building needs direction regarding the disposition of a chronological waiting list that they have been carrying for the last several years.
David's got a question.
Just one procedural concern here. As you're going down the list here, it seems to me that 8 and 9 would then would subsume items 1 through 7. I don't know what frame we would have here in which to identify and specify consistent methodology and so forth on items 1 through 7. If we decide whether to revise the entire Mendocino Town Plan, we would subsume then the above items, and I don't see why those would not have been the takeoff. I know they might be the harder questions. Yeah. Is that what you're
I think that in some of this we may need clarification from County Council or the Coastal Commission as to what constitutes a revision of the Mendocino Town Plan. The town plan itself doesn't talk about methodology. So I think that if the board said, this is the way we consistently want to come up with this number, I'm not sure, but I will defer to legal folks, that would constitute an update of the town plan. And there is a provision in the town plan for updating the tables without revising the whole plan. Mm-hmm. Somewhere along the line, though, it may cross over into that, and we need to know when that is and act accordingly. So there is some clarification that might need to happen about that. But certainly 8 and 9 are looking at a more intensive process where you actually look at the narrative, talk more about town character, community meetings, those kinds of things.
Thank you.
Okay. So real quickly then these are more implementation activities. As I said, planning and building has a waiting list that they were directed to keep and have been for a couple decades now. I think the last time that they disposed of that waiting list was around 2000. So it's now built up again, and at some point they're going to need direction on what to do with the waiting list that they've got. Providing direction on addressing past or pending applications for amendments to the general plan, Mendocino Town Plan. Provide direction for handling future applications, And again, these are activities that, if you recall, you've also made decisions in that regard when we were talking about the update of Ukiah Valley Area Plan and the general plan itself, and a provision was made for how those would be handled. And then 13 and 14 are somewhat difficult to talk about, but do also correspond to part of your earlier discussion, and that is whatever approach you want to use to deal with what are called, where units have kind of converted themselves, or their uses that are not necessarily permitted, or whatever. How is that handled? And then the issue of where there might be a business that is operating without an associated business license or not paying TOT, and how that gets addressed. So this is just a laundry list. As I said, no need to take action on, well, can't take action on any of these today, but you can give direction to the planning team on what you want brought back, when, and how you'd like to see us approach it. So I just wanted to make that connection here, and maybe after you have a bunch of discussion, you could look at where you would like to provide direction. So thank you.
Thank you, Allison. At this time, I think we'll go to and ask the public for their comments. First up is Thomas Kravis. Thomas here?